What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video. In this video, we're going to be building the best sub $1,000 gaming PC build you can put together in 2022. With GPU and other component prices finally back down to near MSRP levels, building a great value system like this is finally back on the cards. Let's do this. If you've not watched one of our build videos before, what we're going to do is walk through all of the components and put the system together as we go. Starting off by looking at the CPU, SSD, RAM and motherboard, often referred to as the motherboard assembly. The motherboard choice I've selected is the Asus Prime B660M D4. We've actually done a full review of this motherboard, breaking down all of its great features and connectivity over on our website, which we'll link below. But in short, it's got 4 RAM DIMM slots, perfect, support for the latest Intel CPUs, perfect, and Gen 4 PCIe M.2 support, perfect. And then insert the perfect. The first component we'll be installing into the board is the CPU, and I've selected the Intel Core i5-12400F. Now this is one of Intel's latest 12th gen processors, and if I'm being completely honest with you, absolutely destroys its AMD counterpart, the Ryzen 5 5600X. It's really easy to install. Simply pull back the retention arm on the socket. I'll just spin that round to give you guys a slightly better view, and then locate the triangle on the processor. Once you've got that, drop the CPU in nice and gently, pop the cover back down, and apply the retention arm to fasten everything into place. The black plastic socket cover, which protects those delicate pins, will pop straight off, and you want to keep hold of this for a later date, in case you have any problems, want to RMA a motherboard, or anything like that. Now we're also going to at this stage install the RAM or the memory. We've got a great processor, but it needs good memory to store the data that it's processing. And that's where Corsair's Vengeance RGB Pro SL kit comes in. Their RGB Pro range is quite a wide reaching range, including the RT, RS and standard Pro models, and any will work well. Go for a 3000 MHz or above kit with 2 DIMMs for dual channel performance. Ideally, we need 16 gigs in this build, though if you'd like a bit more processing power, 32 is never a bad upgrade. Find the gold strip on the RAM DIMM, line up the notch on the memory with your notch on your DIMM slots, and clip it into place. It's going to click in nice and easily with no major effort or headache and look fantastic in the build with a hint of RGB too, because we know James loves RGB. Right, so with those components both installed, it's time to look at the final element of our motherboard assembly, and that is actually the storage. Now, picking storage for any build is a tricky decision. People go, James, a terabyte? That's loads. And some people go, James, a terabyte? That's not enough. It really is going to be a personal decision, and I'd recommend you pick up a Gen 3 NVMe drive for your boot drive, and then if you need some extra capacity, add yourself in a hard drive for that bit more room. Now for this stage of the process, we can unbox the SSD choice today, the XPG Spectrix S20G, made by ADATA, one of the biggest memory manufacturers in the world, and we can go ahead and install it into either of the M.2 slots. The reason for that is because both slots are Gen 4 and Gen 3 backwards compatible, including this top slot up here, but also this slot down the bottom. I think I'm going to pop it into the bottom slot by adding things in at a 45-degree angle. And remember, for this stage of the build, you need to ditch your full-size screwdriver and pick yourself up a teeny tiny one, because this will make things much easier to deal with. Slide the drive in, fasten it down, and our M.2 storage is in. Boom! The motherboard is finished with, but not quite, because we're also going to pop in the CPU cooler to really round things off. Now the new Intel upgraded stock cooler is really good, and on a non-overclockable CPU with a non-overclockable motherboard, it makes perfect sense. Of course, a budget air cooler or even a liquid cooler down the line will be quieter, but won't necessarily give you any more performance. We're talking 1 or 2 frames per second. With this Intel cooler, we just got to drop a dab of thermal paste on and then click it in corner by corner. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Spin the motherboard around for the final time, locate your fan header, and plug the fan in. Now the fan is going to spin and keep the CPU nice and chilly. The cable is just popping out of the bottom of the cooler here, meaning it cable manages really well, and we've got no extra cable slack to worry about or deal with. And then we can put that to one side and focus next up on the case choice. For this build, the Cougar MX430 Air. The Cougar MX430 Air is the perfect case choice for this build. With mesh up the front, plenty of RGB, and a nice design design that also incorporates a tempered glass side panel and USB 3 on the top I/O of the chassis, it ticks all of the boxes we need it to. The form factor is also really nice. That micro ATX size keeps things smaller and more compact, making your build just that little bit sleeker when it's on your gaming setup. What we're going to do at this stage of the build is lay the case down flat on our work surface and proceed to remove all of the side panels. These ones are just screwed in, so we're going to unscrew. Whoa, let's try that one again. We're going to unscrew the side panel, bottom screw just down here, and the top screw too. We're going to take both of these off, slide the glass out somehow. How do you get this off?
There's a little thing there.
Ah, yes, good work, Daniel. What would we do without cameraman down? That is the elusive question. And then we're going to flip the case onto its front and take off the additional screws here and here as well. And that will make the next stage, installing the motherboard, nice and easy. Locate each of the screw holes through the rear of the motherboard, and we're going to use these to fasten it into place. Check that these all line up with the ones pre-installed in the case. By the looks of things, we've actually got two in the wrong locations. The bottom two need to move right up, allowing for support for our smaller micro ATX motherboard. So use a pair of pliers or a standoff removal tool to get this done. Add in your motherboard's rear I/O shield, and then you can go ahead and fasten the motherboard into place. Nice and simple, nice and easy. Just take it slow, because if you get the wrong screws, you could be in a whole world of bother. Once the motherboard's in, we can then go ahead and move on to the GPU before rounding things off with the power supply in just a few moments. This right here is the Gigabyte RTX 3060 Eagle OC. Now this is like the perfect RTX 3060 for this build. It's affordable with a nice 2-fan cooler that doesn't go overboard for the RTX 3060. It's going to look really great in our system, and it's compact, fitting with our slightly smaller micro ATX aesthetic that we're going for in this build. The 3060 provides some really big gains over the 3050. So much so, I think Nvidia actually have room for like a 3050 Ti or 3050 Super, but provides stellar 1080p gaming performance. We'll take a deep dive into the performance of this card later in the benchmark section, but to give you an idea, you're going to be pulling in more than 100 FPS in Apex Legends at 1080p, more than 100 frames per second in Fortnite, and just under 100 FPS in Forza Horizon 5. Bring your system just a little bit closer to you so you can access the all-important GPU zone, and then hover the card over the slot you're looking to use. For us today, we're going to be using the very top PCI slot. Now, cheaper cases like these actually have rear PCI lanes that are single use. Once they're out, they're out. And what that means is ours have already been removed from a previous build. If yours haven't, snap them out of place or unscrew them, depending on the price point of your chassis, and then slide the GPU in. Pop it into that very top slot, apply a nice bit of pressure, and you'll hear a satisfying click sound. And once that's in, we can finally wrap things up for the build portion of the video by looking at the power supply. And my choice for this build is Corsair CX650F. It's fully modular, 80 plus bronze, and has some RGB integration too, meaning it looks fantastic for this build and also provides an efficient amount of power output. The 3060 probably only requires 550-600 watts, but having a bit of headroom never hurt anybody, as we looked at in a recent video where we discussed how you can actually future-proof your gaming PC to avoid a situation where your power supply is just no longer good enough. We're going to plug a number of different cables into the modular interface, including, of course, our 24-pin motherboard power cable. That is our largest connection of the bunch and looks a little something like this. Our 6+2-pin PCI power connector, of which we only need one. The second one we can cable tie away, and that will plug into the top of the power supply too. I'm also going to add in a 4+4-pin CPU power connection for good measure, and this goes next to our PCI connection. And then finally, to wrap things up, a SATA power cable as well, which of course is going to provide power to traditional SATA SSDs and hard drives, of which we've got none, but the RGB hubs and controllers needed for all the RGB gizmos we've gone for in the case. Spin the chassis 180 degrees, and then we're able to go ahead and slide the power supply in. Tighten it down with 1, 2, 3, 4 screws to rest assured it's not going to go anywhere, and then we can spin the chassis back round to actually plug some of these power cables in, starting with the largest one, that motherboard power cable we referred to just a second ago. This is going to go to the right hand side of the motherboard just past the RAM DIMM slots and plugs in like so. We're also going to add in a 8-pin CPU power connection which goes just above the processor on the top left of the motherboard, and a GPU power cable to the graphics card front and center with a single 6+2-pin 8 connection. That will make sure all of these components components have all the necessary juice to get going and play your favourite titles. That's not quite it for the cables and wiring front though, just 3 or 4 more to go. These include your USB 3 connections for the top panel of the case. This one's notched and only goes in one way round. You've also got HD audio for the headphone and mic jacks, which goes to the bottom left of the motherboard. USB 2.0 for the single USB 2 port, which looks like HD audio. In fact, it looks identical, but it has a different pin blocked out, so you can't get them too confused. And your front panel JFP1 connections. These are the fiddly pins to power your power and reset switches and go to the very top of the chassis. And with that done, we're ready to boot the thing up for the very first time to look at performance in just a few moments. But first, how good it looks in an epic GeekaWhat montage in the only way we know how. Roll that montage.
You are the Apex champion.
With the PC built and looking fantastic, it's now time to see just how well it performs. We're going to look in close detail at 4 or 5 of the most popular titles and round off with a summary of all 15 games we tested out on this PC, so hold on in there. The first of those titles is COD Warzone. At 1080p high settings, we pulled in 115 frames per second on average. Support for Nvidia's DLSS helped here, and our frame rates were really consistent across the board. It was a similarly positive story in Valorant, where at 1080p high settings, we achieved over 400 frames per second on average. 376 and 321 for the 90 and 99th percentiles showed that our performance was really consistent, and I was pleased with the results. In Fortnite next up, we tested at 1080p competitive settings this time around. That's when you tune everything down to low and set the render distance to far. It gives you the maximum possible frame rate and viewing distance, and for us, achieved over 200 frames per second. 218 FPS with 202 and 184 for the 90 and 99th percentiles were very solid, and I was impressed that even though we were technically on low settings, the game visually still looked great. Moving on to Apex Legends next up, here at 1080p high settings, we got just a shave under 150 FPS. 136 and 115 for the 90 and 99th percentile results rounded out a solid suite here. The final of our focus titles is COD Vanguard. 1080p high settings with DLSS enabled gave us over 150 FPS here. 8 frames more than Apex Legends with 156 on average. These games look great, but they weren't the only titles we tested. Check out this summary of all 15 games we put this build through its paces with. Everything from GTA 5 and Battlefield 2042 to Forza Horizon 5 and Halo Infinite. Some really great impressive results here, and as always, full benchmark runs can be found linked below. With that though, that wraps it up for this one. If you enjoyed it, make sure to get subscribed, check out all of our other content. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.